like this. Oh my gosh. Trigger Spoon Jr., bright red. There he is with that trigger in his mouth. I got a pliers right here. Bear with me, little guy. Hang on, hang in there. There we go. There he is. Yeah, that didn't take long. That literally took, well, about 4 or 5 minutes, I'm going to say. One fish doesn't tell you anything. 2 fish in a short amount of time, you may be onto something. You may have a pattern underway. 5-6 feet deep, probably, right out in the area where I hooked the other fish. Haven't got another hit on the worm, but got hit right away on the spoon. Get this in the water. We'll talk a little bit more about patterns, variations in lures, and how to make subtle changes. Let me get this back down where it needs to be. Systematic trout fishing. If you're not fishing systematically, if you're not trolling for trout systematically, you're not catching as many fish as you could be because you're taking a haphazard approach. You're using 1 or 2 different presentations. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and your success rate is going to be real erratic. Now, if you fish systematically, that's going to give you the ability to have the best possible response from the fish on any given day, at any given location, under any given conditions. You have to evaluate what the fish are telling you and what the conditions are telling you. I don't put a lot of stock into location. I'm catching fish here at French Meadows. If you put me in this kayak on Lake Shasta, I'd still be catching fish. Likewise, if you transported me in the Star Trek teletransporter and put me on a lake in Australia, I would be catching trout. Because what I seek to do every time I'm on the water, regardless of location, is I look at the environment, I figure out what depth I think the fish are going to be residing at. I use my sonar to determine what areas are actually holding fish, and then I start making my presentations accordingly. Now, part of systematic trout fishing is the ability to build a pattern. Building a pattern can take a decent bite to a good bite, and it can take a good bite to a wide open bite. Now, you don't always have a fish that are willing to offer up a wide open bite every day. But if that possibility is there, working through some different variations in terms of presentation, it is going to give you the ability to maximize what you're catching. And there's a few different factors that you can play with when you're trying to establish the best possible pattern. One is depth, lure shape, lure speed, lure color, and lure vibration. That's why a lot of these factors are why one spoon will outperform another spoon. Some spoons have less flash, some have more flash. Some have different vibration as they move through the water, as they work. And trout can be fickle. Some days they want one level of flash, one type of vibration. The next day, they may want something completely different. So once you find an area of the lake where you've determined there are some trout, and you've got those trout to bite, you've gotten some bites, that is the time that you can really start fooling with those variables and establish a pattern. Last week, I was up at Prosser Reservoir with my cousin. He was catching fish at about 25 feet, but I was catching twice as many fish than he was, from 30 to 32 feet deep. When he started dropping down deeper, he was catching just as many fish as I was. It was a small variation in depth. We were running the same exact lures that made all the difference in the world for him. It doubled his hookup rate. So it was a small change in his presentation, but it really dialed him into the pattern of what the fish really wanted, where they were really willing to feed, or where the most fish were willing to feed in terms of depth. So remember that when you're out on the water, you get a couple bites, maybe catch a couple fish. Here in California, we have the luxury of fishing with 2 rods. Use that second rod to make small changes in your presentation. And you might vary your speed a little bit, the speed of your craft, do some zigzagging, things like that. But color, shape, vibration, the amount of flash the lures are giving off, drop it down another 5 feet, raise it up 5 feet. Start playing with those variables independently. And if you stumble on something that's really going to make a difference, the fish will let you know. Now, I put on a Trigger Spoon Junior here a little while ago. I've hooked 3 fish on a Trout Tricks worm right under the surface, an orange Trout Tricks. I tried a trigger booger on the lead core, no love there. I started out with a grub on the lead core, no love there. I put on a bright red Trigger Spoon Junior, and I caught a fish right away. Now, I'm hoping to catch another fish here in the next several minutes, and that will tell me something. That will tell me that shape and flash, as related to the Trigger Spoon Junior, are allowing that spoon to outperform the Trout Tricks minnow. Now, time will tell if that's going to be the case, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to establish a pattern that's going to take this bite from decent to really, really good, or maybe wide open as the day goes on. But remember, if you're going to catch as many trout as possible, you need to fish systematically, and your goal always has to be to establish the best pattern for any given day under any given, set of conditions.